Elise Boulding. The time period of World War II was a scary and horrible time for many countries around the world. Many families were ripped apart, lost loved ones, and terrified as the effects of the war unfolded. Imagine being in the surrounding countries around Germany and facing Hitler's invasion. Elise Boulding and her family lived in Norway and fled the United States while Elise was just an infant during the German invasion of Norway. After seeing the effects of World War II on the entire world, Elise decided to push for the world peace throughout all countries to prevent another world war from happening. Boulding's Quaker faith played a vital role in her focus and development as a sociologist and peace activist. Boulding did not grow up in a strict religious household, but said from a young age she always felt God's presence. The only things in her household that were based around Christianity were every year on Christmas Eve, her dad would always read the story of Jesus from the Bible, and she knew the Lord's Prayer in Norwegian and began attending a local Protestant church on her own at age 9 after her parents didn't go. She developed a close relationship with the minister's wife after starting going to the church by herself. The minister's wife served as a spiritual mentor of sorts for Elise. She always felt a longing to know God more, especially when she was in her teenage years and turned to independent study to suffice that. Elise had different influences other than religion. While in Norway, her mother worked as a social worker for girls who worked in Norwegian factories and worked in peace factories. She really looked up to her mother and the work that she did to influence her beliefs in world peace. Elise met her husband Kenneth, who was also a friend. He was an accomplished academic economist, international peace researcher, and poet when the couple met, and Elise names him as her strongest influence throughout her life. Elise viewed listening as the key to promoting world peace and nonviolence. She believed to prevent world peace and nonviolence, listening to other countries' leaders, and those countries' leaders listening to the other countries' leaders was the best way to prevent world wars from happening. A major theoretical focus for Boulding was the idea of peace as a daily process. She believed that if you practiced peace every single day, that everybody would become accustomed to it and there would be more world peace throughout this world. She challenged the idea of peace as a dull, static process and advocated for a concept she termed peaceableness. Her work emphasized personal and interpersonal promotion of peace, working peace every single day to everybody you meet to eventually spread it around kind of like a virus or infection. This peace theory involves shaping and reshaping understandings and behaviors to adapt to a constantly changing world and sustain well-being for all. She knew that the world was going to change throughout time, and she figured that there were different ways to cope with peace. Boulding felt in order to accomplish peace, one must review the history of conflicts. If you review the history of conflicts, there's different things that set apart wars and conflict, and if you study that, you can better understand how to cause peace. No two human beings are the same, and as a result, conflict becomes an integral part of any social order. No countries out there are the same as the exact same other one. They've got different factors going into their country. So when you put two countries together that don't agree on something, there's probably going to be conflict, and if you don't try to resolve it with peace, it's going to end up in a war. Peace culture welcomes differences, recognizing them as potential sources of conflict, but also as a starting point for progress. The world's biggest struggles have seemed to come from religion and politics. Boulding feels that with the world's expanding interdependence makes it necessary to promote openness and flexibility for the sake of coexistence. Some countries are going to have to respect other countries' choices on religion and politics. Yes, we can advise them on what we think we should do, but she didn't think it was a good idea for us to go to war and cause wars over religion and politics. Women and children are also vital and underappreciated players in the peace process. Boulding felt children gentle the human species. If more children and women are involved, people tend to be a little bit more peaceful. Boulding's book, The Underside of History, A View of Woman Through Time, first published in 1976, explored the changing roles of women from Paleolithic times to the present. She attempted to understand what she described as women's underlife and men's overlife in social roles. Boulding likened modern women's roles to that of inmates. The household imprisons them and expects them to be on call at all times to provide for their husbands and children. Women are, in a sense, stripped of their identity, autonomy, and privacy and considered under their families and husbands. In hunter-gatherer communities, female-male relationships were egalitarian. Men's work was dedicated to hunting, providing about 20% of the food. Women, on the other hand, provided the other 80% of the food through gathering and capturing small game near their campsites. In that time, many people thought that the men are the ones that brought home the food, or as they say, bring home the bacon, bring home the money. Women actually caught more than the men, and women actually kept the household running, as men didn't. In agricultural communities, women's and men's roles further differentiated. Women stayed close to where the crops were planted while men continued to hunt. The women knew what they were doing, and they stayed close to where they were because they knew the area, while men went out and tried to discover on their own, and it didn't always work out. Men were now away hunting for days while women stayed in the same spot. Like I just said, men didn't know what they were looking for and know the area they were in, and the women did. That always caused conflict, and that could have caused peace if the woman and the man would work together. In the 19th and 20th centuries, women worked to gain power and moved from the den-ins to the dehors, as Elise puts it. Women started to recognize the fictions of male guardianship, and many rebelled. Boulding considers the foundation for peace to be empowering women to deconstruct a history of patriarchy and devaluation and reconstruct truly equality, appreciating certain differences between the sexes. After the females realized that they did know as much as the man, and the man had always put the female below them, they started to rebel. It caused conflict, and thus yielding her point that peace needed to be restored between the two. Men needed to respect women as much as they respected themselves, and the peace would be resolved between the man versus man conflict. Boulding offers building a global civic culture, education for interdependence as a holistic first step towards solving international conflicts. She envisions a global civic culture as not simply made of nation-states, but as a global community of human beings. Boulding believed that a civic world order would become a reality while acknowledging the strife that exists now. Building a global civic culture is geared towards addressing the world's problems and offering ideas for solutions. Boulding believes that we must all become teachers and develop new learning communities. Everyone, old and young, will teach. Age groups will teach each other from their respective generations. She feels that if everybody individually can promote peace daily, that peace will infect everybody, and that world peace can spread, and that we can have a peaceful life instead of all the world wars. In order to do this, we must learn to think outside the box. Humans are intuitive, creative animals with cognitive, analytic, reasoning abilities. Boulding states that for most of us, education has been tied to the maxim, stick to the facts, no need for imaginative thinking. Ultimately, her book encourages us to become both teachers and problem solvers, and includes exercises to lead the way. Boulding's main point is that if everybody will promote world peace daily, will teach others world peace, and will work on world peace themselves, that all the conflicts in the world would have a huge solution, and that we could live peacefully without world wars and without conflicts between people.